Imagine being 13 years old and challenging a grown samurai to a duel. Now imagine winning. History remembers Miyamoto Musashi as a kensei, a sword saint, an undefeated warrior who fought over 60 duels and never tasted defeat. But these stories only scratch the surface. To truly understand the legend, we must uncover the man. And to do that, we have to go back to the beginning, back to the chaos and bloodshed that forged Japan's greatest swordsman. Our story begins around 1584, in the brutal era known as Sengoku Jidai, the age of warring states. Japan was torn apart by relentless civil wars. Daimyo, ambitious warlords, clashed endlessly, seeking dominance. For ordinary people, life was harsh, unpredictable, and short. Into this world was born Shinmen Bennosuke, later known as Miyamoto Musashi. His father, Shinmen Musashi, was no ordinary man. A respected martial artist, Musashi was known as unrivaled under the sun, praised even by the shogun himself. But Musashi's childhood was far from stable. His mother died young, and his father was harsh, demanding, and distant. Some accounts suggest Bennosuke was sent away to live with his uncle, a Buddhist monk, who taught him discipline and the basics of reading and writing. Left mostly on his own, Musashi began teaching himself swordsmanship, practicing relentlessly, guided only by old scrolls, intuition, and sheer determination. At 13, Musashi's first recorded duel wasn't a playground scuffle. Arima Kihei, a traveling samurai seeking opponents, confidently challenged anyone brave enough to face him. Bennosuke accepted without hesitation. Legend tells of Musashi, armed only with a heavy wooden sword he'd carved himself, charging wildly at the adult warrior. Kihei swung his blade, expecting an easy victory, but Musashi ducked beneath the strike, grabbed him and hurled him to the ground. With brutal simplicity, Musashi beat him to death. This was no elegant victory, just raw instinct and brutal effectiveness. A boy had killed a grown samurai, instantly becoming both feared and famous. The duel ignited a lifelong fire within Musashi, pushing him to challenge Japan's greatest warriors. By age 16, Musashi faced another duel against a skilled swordsman, Tadashima Akiyama, and again emerged victorious. But the nation itself was about to undergo a seismic shift. In 1600, at the Battle of Sekigahara, the largest and most decisive clash in Japanese history, Musashi fought on the losing side. Overnight, tens of thousands of samurai became ronin, masterless, wandering warriors. Being a ronin was considered disgraceful, but Musashi saw it differently. For the first time, he was truly free. Unbound by loyalty to any lord, he chose his own path, a warrior's pilgrimage across Japan. From now on, he would test himself against anyone who accepted his challenge. Musashi lived rough, sleeping in forests and abandoned shrines, appearing more like a bandit than a knight. But everywhere he went, his reputation preceded him. He was both feared and admired, a warrior who turned disadvantage into strength and isolation into independence. In Musashi's own words,
"You may abandon your own body, but you must preserve your honor."
To Musashi, honor wasn't loyalty to a master, it was loyalty to oneself. Imagine challenging not one samurai, but an entire school of Japan's greatest swordsmen. For Miyamoto Musashi, the man history calls the sword saint, that challenge was a test of his skill and reputation. Our story picks up around 1604. Musashi was now in his early 20s, a masterless ronin, free to travel and fight as he pleased. Kyoto, the cultural heart of Japan, was also home to some of the nation's most prestigious sword schools, none more famed than the Yoshioka clan. The Yoshioka school was legendary, having trained samurai for generations. Challenging them was borderline madness, but Musashi wasn't interested in easy victories. He came to Kyoto explicitly to prove himself against the best. Musashi issued a formal challenge to the school's head. Yoshioka Seijiro was known as a skilled duelist who'd rarely lost, but Musashi had a strategy: psychological warfare. On the day of the duel, Musashi arrived intentionally late, casually dressed, appearing utterly unconcerned. Seijiro, infuriated by the insult, lost his composure. With precision timing, Musashi struck him down with one swift blow, severely injuring Seijiro's arm. The master swordsman never fought again. Enraged, the Yoshioka family sent Seijiro's younger brother, Denshichiro, a fierce and skilled warrior, to restore their reputation. Once again, Musashi used his now infamous tactic, arriving late, unsettling his opponent. When Denshitiro attacked, his anger made him reckless. Musashi easily exploited his openings, defeating and killing him swiftly. The Yoshioka school was humiliated. Desperate, the Yoshioka plotted one final attempt to salvage their honor. They invited Musashi to a third duel, but secretly arranged an ambush. More than 70 armed warriors lying in wait at Ichijō-ji temple. Musashi saw through the deception. This time he arrived early, long before dawn, and hid nearby, observing the gathering warriors from the shadows. When the Yoshioka fighters grew impatient, Musashi suddenly appeared, charging into their ranks. In a swift, calculated strike, Musashi cut down the clan's young heir, Matoshichiro, instantly collapsing the Yoshioka legacy. In the confusion that followed, Musashi vanished into the darkness, unharmed. Why did Musashi repeatedly arrive late? It was a deliberate tactic. He sought to frustrate and destabilize opponents, making them impatient, predictable, and easy to defeat. This psychological strategy became a hallmark of his style, proof that victory was as much mental as physical. Musashi later wrote in his Book of Five Rings,
All battles are first won or lost in the mind.
Clearly, he practiced what he preached. Picture two legendary swordsmen, one known for an impossibly long sword, the other famous for arriving late and using wooden blades. This was the duel that defined Miyamoto Musashi's legend. Let's step onto the shores of Ganryū Island, where myth and reality collide. Our story moves forward to 1612. Musashi was now famous throughout Japan, undefeated in countless duels. But Sasaki Kojiro, nicknamed the Demon of the Western Provinces, was equally famous, known for his long sword, the drying pole, and his lethal swallow cut technique. Musashi challenged Kojiro, who readily accepted. This was a clash between two distinct styles, each man representing an entire philosophy of swordsmanship. The duel was scheduled for Ganryū Island at sunrise. As crowds gathered along the shores, anticipation grew. Kojiro arrived early, dressed finely, with his polished blade gleaming in the dawn. Musashi, true to form, was nowhere to be seen. Hours passed, and Kojiro's frustration built. Finally, a small boat appeared on the horizon. Musashi had arrived, casually late, as always, deliberately unsettling his opponent. As Musashi stepped onto the beach, Kojiro was furious, not just because of the delay, but because Musashi wasn't even carrying a proper sword. Instead, he had carved a wooden sword from a boat oar during his trip across the water. This was another psychological tactic, a final insult designed to enrage Kojiro and cloud his judgment, but it was also strategic. Musashi's wooden blade was longer, matching Kojiro's famously extended weapon. The fight began suddenly. Kojiro lunged first, his legendary swallow cut slicing at Musashi's head. Musashi evaded narrowly. The strike missed, cutting only his headband. In that critical moment, Musashi countered instantly, striking Kojiro's temple with devastating force. Kojiro fell, mortally wounded. The duel was over within moments. Just a single decisive exchange. The duel on Ganryū Island instantly became legend. Some accounts say Musashi immediately departed, saddened by the loss of such a skilled opponent. Others say he calmly washed his hands in the sea, then quietly sailed away without a glance back. This duel cemented Musashi's reputation forever, marking him undeniably as the greatest swordsman in Japanese history. After the famous duel on Ganryū Island, Musashi gradually stepped away from dueling. Though he continued to travel and occasionally fight, his focus shifted dramatically. His battles became fewer, but his legend grew even larger. Why stop fighting at the peak of his fame? Musashi believed he'd reached the pinnacle of martial skill. Now it was time to teach others and leave behind a legacy that went beyond his sword. During his years of dueling, Musashi had perfected a unique fighting method, Niten Ichi-ryu, meaning two heavens as one. Unlike other samurai who wielded only a single katana, Musashi used two swords simultaneously, a katana and wakizashi. This dual blade technique representing the balance between offense and defense, strength and subtlety, mind and body. He taught this philosophy at his dojo, training carefully selected disciples. Around 1643, Musashi retreated to a remote cave near Kumamoto, aware he was nearing the end of his life. Here, he began writing Gorin no Sho, the Book of Five Rings. It was a reflection of Musashi's entire philosophy on life, strategy, and combat. Divided into 5 sections, earth, water, fire, wind, and void, the book detailed everything from battle strategies to deep philosophical ideas about clarity of mind and spirit. One famous line read, "Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world." In 1645, with his health failing, Musashi completed the Book of Five Rings. In his last moments, he dressed formally, seated himself upright, and began meditating, passing away quietly, composed until the very end. Though Musashi died centuries ago, his teachings endured, influencing not only warriors but also modern leaders, artists, and entrepreneurs worldwide. Today, the Book of Five Rings is studied by millions for its insights into strategic thinking and personal growth. Musashi's journey, from a rebellious boy to master swordsman, and finally, philosophical teacher, is a powerful testament to the human ability to evolve, master oneself, and leave a lasting legacy. If you've enjoyed exploring the remarkable life of Japan's greatest swordsman, subscribe now to discover more incredible tales lost in time. See you in the next Lost History tale.